Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to dive into a pretty radical reinterpretation of what is, without a doubt, the Bible's most mysterious book. So, what if the book of Revelation isn't actually about the end of the world? What if, as scholar Noel Robertson Platt argues, it's really an incredibly detailed allegory for the Easter story?
You see, the big puzzle with Revelation has always been, what does it mean? For centuries, the common view is that it's the kind of roadmap to the end of the world, just packed with future prophecy. But what if its true meaning is actually anchored in events that have already happened, in past history? This is the one question that could change everything we think we know.
For most of its history, people have treated this book like an apocalyptic puzzle box. You know the drill, trying to connect all the strange visions of beasts, horsemen, and falling stars to future wars, disasters, and the end times. But according to Platt, this whole future-gazing perspective might just be what he calls the illusion. So if it's not about the future, what's the alternative? Well, Platt's thesis flips that whole idea on its head. It proposes that Revelation is not about what will happen, but is instead a highly symbolic and, frankly, powerful retelling of what has already happened. It's not prophecy, it's a deep dive back into the foundational events of Christianity.
Okay, to really get this, we need to understand one key literary device, the allegory. Think of an allegory as a story with two layers. There's the surface story you read, in this case, all the mystical, otherworldly visions in Revelation. But underneath that, there's a hidden, real-world truth it's trying to tell you. The surface story is the illusion. The real meaning is hiding just beneath.
So you might be asking, why? Why write such a complex, coded story? Well, the theory points to a very specific historical threat, a first-century heresy called Docetism. Docetists were basically saying that Jesus was just a spirit who only appeared to be human. Now, that's a direct attack on the very core of Christianity, right? So the allegory becomes this powerful, creative defense of the physical, flesh-and-blood reality of Jesus' life, his death, and his resurrection.
All right, so if Revelation is a code, there's gotta be a key to unlock it. And according to this theory, that key is hidden in plain sight, right in the book's very first verse.
Revelation 1:1 kicks things off by stating its whole purpose, to show what must soon take place. Now, for 2,000 years, readers have been scratching their heads about that word soon. I mean, if it's been 2 millennia, that doesn't feel very soon, does it?
And this is where the theory presents its breakthrough. It suggests a direct link. Revelation's what must soon take place is an allegorical reference to another soon event. Jesus, on the road to Jerusalem, telling his disciples exactly what was about to happen to him, his suffering, crucifixion, and resurrection. Platt argues this historical moment is the real event that Revelation 1:1 is pointing to. This is the key that sets the stage for the entire book.
Okay, so with that key in mind, let's actually see how this allegorical code works in a specific passage. We're going to take a look at the famous, incredible throne room vision in Revelation chapter 5. So here's how the allegory maps out. On one side, you have the magnificent heavenly throne room. That's the illusion. But the underlying reality, the theory says, is Jesus' ministry in the actual Jerusalem temple on earth. The one on the throne, that represents God in his temple. The Lamb is, of course, Jesus, the Lamb of God. And the 24 elders, they correspond directly to the 24 courses of temple priests. The entire celestial vision becomes a symbolic retelling of a real earthly scene. And this is where it gets really specific, right down to the exact words being used. In the heavenly scene in Revelation, the big question is, who is worthy? Back on earth, in the temple, the priests challenged Jesus by asking, by what authority are you doing these things? In this context, worthiness and authority are basically the same thing. It's a direct linguistic link between the two scenes.
Now this next one is even more layered, almost like a bit of clever wordplay. In Revelation, the author John weeps much, an act that obviously involves water. In the parallel scene in the temple, what does Jesus bring up? The baptism of John the Baptist, another act defined by water. So in this allegory, one John's tears become a symbolic stand-in for the other John's baptism.
And here's another one, just to show this isn't a one-off. Revelation says no one in heaven or on earth was worthy. In the temple, the tricky question about John's baptism was whether it was from heaven or from men. And of course, men are made from the earth. The scope of power being talked about in both texts is identical. So the point is,
These aren't just vague similarities, they are precise linguistic and conceptual echoes. But beyond these individual parallels, the theory's biggest claim, what you could call its smoking gun, is a chronological one. It argues that the main events of the Easter story show up in Revelation, and, crucially, they show up in the exact right order. So here's the core argument. The apocalyptic events we read about in chapters 16 through 20 are not prophecies of some future chaos, no. Instead, they're allegorical pictures of the Easter story, laid out in perfect chronological order. Christ's passion, then his death, then his burial, and finally his resurrection. Proponents of this theory say that once you see this direct sequential pattern, the whole book just clicks into place. So, let's just take a step back. What does all of this actually mean? Because if this interpretation holds up, it completely reframes one of the most influential books ever written.
The takeaway is just profound. Revelation shifts from being a book about predicting the future to a book about defending the past. Its primary purpose, in this view, wasn't to scare anyone, but to serve as a creative, symbolic, and unforgettable testimony to the core events of the gospel, the story of Easter. It was an assertion of historical reality against heresy. Now, everything we've covered in this explainer is drawn from the work of Noel Robertson Platt. If this has sparked your curiosity at all and you want to go deeper, you can find the entire thesis in his book. It's titled The True Meaning of the Apocalypse, the Easter Story, the Definitive Exposition, and it's available on Amazon. And that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. For 2,000 years, people have looked to the book of Revelation to try and understand the future. But if it was always meant to help us understand the past, what does that change about its meaning for us today?